I want to use the example. I'm gonna use New York for example, right? And this kind of stems from something that was brought up last night, but I want to put some context around it. So when it comes to hip hop, for example, most people would say hip hop, started in New York. You know, there's been some, I would say, in the most recent years, it was some, I guess, Puerto Rico, some other ethnicity group, wanted to claim, to kind of start hip hop. But in the event, New York City, what I mean, that's where, most people, it's a consensus, New York City. But within New York City, you got different boroughs, and then you got different cliques or whatever within the boroughs. So even when it comes to New York and the discussion of hip hop and who is credited with starting hip hop, who's credited with making it hot, popular, who's credited with having the biggest influence. Like it's gonna vary amongst so many people. You know what I mean? And then when it comes to who's who, you know what I mean? There's guys from Brooklyn that probably don't know guys in Staten Island. There's guys from Harlem that probably don't even know, guys from hip hop in Queens. And so, everybody has their respective contribution and respect from each borough or neighborhood. But just because you well known in a certain area or aspect don't mean that everybody is gonna know you or people or if anybody gonna care. You know, I'll use myself for example, even as a content creator and as a traveler. Now those that know, what I mean, my travel game and my contribution and influence, they know because, we've been in similar circles, whether it's on Facebook, certain WhatsApp groups that's kind of popular among some of the, I would say, the heavy travelers. And I could be on YouTube all day saying how I'm the only person that did this and accomplished this. I could kick, scream, and holler about everything, but I mean, most people might not care if they're not in it. They only care about who's hot, and that's something that I had to learn. Other people, have to realize too. Like most people, they care about who's hot. They don't care about who started what. They don't care about who, you know, your history or whatever the case may be. I could compare myself. I'm gonna use Austin Holloman for example. Um, you know, at the time he'd been to Brazil one or two times. You know, but he hot. And other people felt a certain type of way because they put more into travel and they more knowledgeable and speak or more articulate on certain topics. But at the end of the day, a lot of people that's watching, they care about who's hot. So so that's the first part I want to address. Let me catch up. He said it was pretty much an open forum, which we all agree is a great thing for black men to travel and see the world offers facts. So I'm gonna start with that. Um, and let me know if y'all kind of resonate with the New York hip hop example. You know what I mean? People are not. New York is a big city. It's different boroughs. People are not gonna know somebody from a different borough all the time, even if they hot and known in their respective area. And when it comes to the origination of hip hop, for example, um, there's gonna be different viewpoints. Sometimes it's not right or wrong. Sometimes it's just based off the information that you know. And that's what a lot of people have to understand. Sometimes people are right based off the information they know. And if they knew different, they would I mean then they would probably approach it different. So it's somebody that feels responsible for influencing hip hop in the culture and other ethnicity groups. There's some people going to feel like they're the ones that started hip hop, and then there's going to be some people that feel like they create. I mean they created hip hop. So when it comes to the passport bros, there, by it being becoming mainstream and popular, there are going to be people that are going to be vocal about the historical context, and some people might not care about the history, and some people might. So when it comes to the passport bros and the historical context, um, one aspect is, most, like I said earlier, most people are going to care about who's hot, and and that's what most people are going to care about, who's hot at the end of the day. So the who's who in the travel game, I try to do my best to highlight all the people I know. I did a post in my community tab, and I tagged like a lot of content creators that I'm aware of, that's heavy in the travel game. And so when I associate passport bros, or even in the discussion about travel, my first inclination is to highlight guys that travel a lot. At least on YouTube, I can only acknowledge the ones that have channels. There's a lot of guys that I know that don't have YouTube channels, that that travel heavily. For example, shout out to Bert. Sometimes he's in the comments. He's not a YouTuber, but he travels more than a lot of us. Jay Clyde, he travels a lot as well. I mean, he has a YouTube channel as well. So the only way to know is if you're in those circles. Now, there are some guys, even myself, there are some guys that put a lot into travel, and some people don't feel like they got recognition, or people are not aware of them. I reached out to, I think one time I reached out to Flyboy Way. I mean, he did a couple of streams on my, he been a guest on a couple of streams. And to be honest with you, I thought he knew who I was. What I mean? Because we have been in some groups, and I use different names, pseudonyms, but nevertheless, he didn't know who I was. And I'm like, shit. I've been to more cities and this and that, and talked about these places more than him in Colombia, for example. But I have to realize that everybody is not gonna know who you are. Everybody's not gonna know who you are. When it comes to the first person that says something, or invented something, as human beings, I can think of an idea, a word, and I could feel like man, that's a dope idea, you know, and I could go on Google and Google that same concept or idea, and it might come up. You like, damn, somebody else had the same, idea, or anything like that. Like, that's part of human nature. What I mean? We have the same way of processing information and coming up with ideas. So it's likely that somebody said something similar before in the past. Maybe the context might have been different, but nevertheless, it may have came up in the past. So if you Google, let's say, passport bros, for example, you won't don't be surprised if you see if it in a search result that was dated back in the early 2000s, or something that was I mean, the internet is let's say 1999, but let's just say pass you might Google passport bros, and that name and that phrase will come up, in the early 2000s. you know it probably didn't mean anything, but so to me, trying to track down the first person that put those two words together, uh to me, it has no value. you know and so it was a discussion about the hashtag, as far as using it as a hashtag, which really mainly only applies on social media. When you hashtag it on Instagram, hashtagging on YouTube, not too much Facebook. And so and so there's people that want to get credit for using the hashtag. Now, what value does it bring, or does it bring value? I mean, that's for you to decide. But the only thing a hashtag does, I mean, I would say this: one thing a hashtag does is basically stimulates the algorithm, and then over time, if that hashtag is used more and more and more to millions of time, then that hashtag becomes trending and things of that nature. So me and Aaron Ferentz BMT last 2021, in year 2021, he used the Facebook group. He created a Facebook group called Passport Bros, and then shortly after, I started the YouTube page Passport Bros podcast in 2021. Now, when it comes to marketing and things of that nature, you want to put hashtag Passport Bros in your videos. So when it comes to, at least from me on YouTube, um, there wasn't a lot of people using hashtag Passport Bros, um, in 2021. It may have been before me because there was dating coaches and other people that um, started using the term, but that could only be maybe for the last maybe 2 or 3 years. Now, the who made Passport Bros go mainstream, that's a different conversation. And I brought up last night that two individuals that I credit with things going viral, with going a movement going viral, I credited to Yes Jonas and Austin Holloman. Um, you know, due to their what they were able to do on TikTok, and pretty much blow up, and then obviously spread that to YouTube. But like I said last night, Austin Holloman, he went viral off of his content. He didn't go viral by hashtagging Passport Bros. Because if you go to Austin Holloman videos, he did not put any hashtags in his TikTok videos. What made him go viral. Same thing for Yes. I mean, if I'm wrong, I could correct myself. But Yes Jonas, he got viral based off his content, not based off of him putting a hashtag in his video. So what I mean. So, and to most people, it's like, why is it important? You know, um, I don't know why it is or not. What I mean. I just want to kind of make distinctions. What I mean, because um, different people may want to have credit for different things. You know, so it's like manosphere or red pill. There's a lot of people that say guys are kind of pioneers of red pill talk, but the concept of red pill. What I mean, deciding to take a blue pill, red pill, that came from the movie Matrix, and then again, somebody probably came up with that concept before the movie Matrix came out. So it's certain people now in the manosphere that just kind of get, um, you know, they get their flowers when it comes to red pill. But the contributions to the red pill movement can be accredited to a lot of people, and some people, they may not know each other. So that's the point. So I'm all about everybody communicating so they can understand. Because just like um, the red pill movement or community or whatever you want to call it, there's a lot of people that are credited with putting it out there, and all those people deserve their flowers, respectfully. And now, you know I would say Fresh and Fit kind of, they're kind of carrying the torch right now, I guess, for um I guess you want to say modern red pill content. Let me see who we got up in here. Um, he said, "Brother Burt Ross travels a lot, very low key. Often yeah, he's very low key. He's an Austin Holloman made Passport Bros mainstream. Jay Clyde, I brought Jay Clyde up earlier. Salute, bro. Salute. Yeah, Austin Holloman. He helped the Passport Bros go mainstream, and he wasn't even using Passport Bros. He was just saying, fellas, get your passport. It's that bad. That was his moniker. It's that bad, fellas, get your passport. And so, with any type of person or movement going viral, people want to attach a name to that. And I think Passport Bros was a perfect name to attach to it. If I use Yes Jonas's brand, for example, Blue Book Gentleman, which is a great moniker or a great phrase. If that would have existed before Passport Bros, when Austin Holloman went viral, people would have been like, "Oh man, those Blue Book Gentlemen is on it," you know. So it's about, So it's more about, it's like in democracy, the people decide. The people decide what they want to call you, what they want to do. The people decide what what phrase they want to use, what's hot. So that's why guys like Austin Holloman or Yes Jonas, and it could be somebody else that feel like they belong in that conversation. Um, have made people pay attention to the Passport Bros. Um, I would say this. Now, I would say as far as who's responsible for um, those are responsible, especially on YouTube, as far as pushing the algorithm. It's usually it was it's mostly the channels that's not even travel related. They have big platforms. Trying to think of some platforms that's there's channels that they may have 100, 200, 300,000 subscribers. So all they got to do is make a video about Passport Bros one time, and they're going to have more control of the algorithm just because of the size of their channel. So um, guys go viral. Non-travel content creators, bigger platforms, they want to hop on the Passport Bro wave, so they start pushing the algorithm. So they're the ones that get the attention on the Madam Yor, but they're the ones that get the attention to Fox News, because Fox News or Madam Yor or any other media outlets, they catch wind of what's going on through mainstream media. And so the Passport Bros, let's say Austin Holloman or Yes Jonas, for example, they're not mainstream media. Mainstream media catch winds of the Passport Bros by other mainstream outlets. And there's a lot of different, I would say, mainstream outlets on social media. Um, so there's a lot of credit to those type of channels or people that have bigger influences than most of us combined. That can push a movement. So I don't want to. I hope that uh, too many people don't get caught up into that. There's a lot of guys um, that can flex. There's a lot of guys that got receipts. There's a lot of guys that have influenced people. For example, International Zoe. He always, he tell me he told people on camera that I credit you, no excuse, Rob, for getting me to go to South Africa. And a lot of guys. Now, without a first black man have been to South Africa? No. Has a lot of people been to South Africa before me? Yes. Um, however, in the groups I'm in and the spaces I've been into, I've been able to um, influence a lot of men to say, you know what, I'm gonna give South Africa a chance. Whether guys want to give me credit or not. I mean, I've influenced in the last, in the last 2 years, I have influenced guys to check out South Africa, specifically Durban. And then obviously from that, people are going to see their experiences and say, okay, I need to check it out too. And then it's just going to be, it's going to be exponential growth. But I definitely have something to do with guys being interested in South Africa, for example. Um, and so and Zoe mentioned about he run into a lot of guys and they said, man, you inspire me, or you're a big influence on me wanting to travel to Colombia or whatever country it may be. So guys can, everybody can, like I said, flex and say they have receipts for what they done and accomplished. You know, what we call in some of these travel groups a dick measuring contest. Like we could all have dick measuring contests, but what does that do for the end user at the end of the day? The end user meaning the YouTube viewer. What does that do for them at the end of the day? Most of the time, people want to know. They want to be either entertained or they want information. What I mean? That's pretty much what they want. They want to be entertained or they want information. Um, I mentioned me and BMT as far as not necessarily being creators of the word or making or being part of the word going viral, but the other aspect of I guess what we're trying to do is commercialize it. And so you know um, when it comes to trademarking, for example, um, it's switched from patent. It used to be um, first use over first to file. Now it's first now the courts realize that first to file. So um, if anybody wants to cement credit for anything, trademark it correctly, but trademark it as it pertains to as it pertains to a certain business economic activity, as they would say. Let me read. So the comment Cigar Music said, "Cold hard truth, a passport, bro. Those women are are into because of your money. If you were poor in their country, they would never give you a chance." I mean, yeah, I mean that's the name of the game. It's hypergamy. It's female nature to want a man that's in the top percentile. And yeah, so yeah, just like in Colombia, there's a lot of Colombian women that are not going to date Colombian men that's not in a certain economic state. So yeah, that's a very good point. Um, he said, Shah Khan said, all women are into you because of your money. Yeah. Top of the morning. Shout out to Red Pill Finance. Shout out to Real Pill Finance. But yeah, back to the who's who, man. The who's who. Um, it is let me know what y'all think. Is it important to know the who's who when it comes to certain things? Um, for me it's slightly important because I don't want to be listening to anybody and then find out I was listening to somebody that really um I mean, that really ain't have the clout. I ain't gonna say clout. That really didn't have the knowledge or the substance. I want to be learning from or influenced by or entertained by somebody that that should be credited and should be watched. So I mean, it has someone's important to kind of know the who's who. Um, and I tried to do streams on certain history, um, primarily the popular Facebook groups, um, Charles Tyler and so many other groups that spent off from that. WhatsApp is big. People have different groups, but there are certain groups that only, I would say, a few people are privy to, and pretty much like I would say the hardcore heavy hitters are in those groups. Um, and so, the who's who, um, at least on YouTube, we know who produces a lot of content for certain countries, whether it's Brazil, whether it's Colombia, whether it's Thailand, South Africa, or any other country. We kind of know that. We also know that there are guys that don't make videos on YouTube that travel extensively. But one thing I wanted to say before I close is that um, if you a traveler, let me rephrase this. If you travel a lot, when I say a lot, I mean at least 6 times a year, every other month, 9 times a year, every 45 days, or even monthly, you're going to know who's who. I know so many guys that travel on YouTube, not on YouTube, because you travel to these places so much. We've been to the same, we're in the same forums to share and get information. Um, and so uh, in a lot of ways, if some people don't know who you are, it's because you're not a heavy traveler. Not saying you don't travel or haven't traveled, but you're not a heavy traveler. You're not out there all the time. Um, there's people know me probably by face, probably by name, or by association, but it's people that know me because I travel a lot, a lot. My travels average about 9 times a year, every 45 days. Um, somebody like International Zoe, he's damn, he travels over, he's out the country more, 50%, over 50% of the year. Jay Clyde, he's out the country damn near at least 12 times a year. And so many others. So we know, so the who's who, and why the who's who and why certain people know a lot of people, and some people may know some, but not all. Whatever. When it comes to travel, it's because of how frequent you travel and what groups you in. Shao Khan said, did a consultation with Rob. Appreciate that, bro. He said the man really gave me tips on how to maneuver. Colombia sent me links and groups to join. Thanks, man. No, I appreciate that, bro. Appreciate that, bro. Solo Traveler, what's good, bro? What's good? What up? He's a heavy traveler too, man. He said when it comes to the who is who, Austin Holloman made Passport Bros go viral, but I would never do a consultation with him when it comes to knowledge. Then it's Rob, but that's the man. Appreciate it. Yeah. You might not know Yes Jonas. Yes Jonas, he went viral too. He went viral too. So but that's the thing though. Everybody might not know everybody. Some people are just new to YouTube. They don't know the history of Black Man's Option, Charles Tyler. They don't know, you know, guys like Taylor May, where they started from, Mr. Flip Flop. People don't know these guys before they got hot. And my last thing I'm gonna say, man, you know, if you're not part of if people don't know you, especially in the travel game, it have a lot to do with you too. Because if you are a person that's private, that's individual, keep to yourself, don't really like to be involved in groups and stuff like that, that's your decision. But it comes with people not really may not knowing, or certain people may not knowing too much about you. You know what I mean? A lot of these guys, Solo Traveler, Black Man Travel, that was up last night. Zoe is a popular. He's a big YouTuber, but he'll still participate in some WhatsApp groups. Sometime he'll interact with everybody. He's a person that you can get in touch with. For the most part, but he's accessible. You know, and some guys get to a certain point, they're not as accessible, but he's still very accessible. So there's guys that just are, I would say, friendly, engaging, and like to communicate. I mean, Sigma that because he didn't have to do that. You know what I mean? As a man, he came up and spoke his piece, introduced himself, introduced some history, and that started communication. You know what I mean? I appreciate black men to communicate. There was a guy on the Clubhouse. He started a Passport Bros group. You know what I mean? And we'll be doing a stream together this weekend. He reached out to me, man. He was like, man, I thought I was kind of the only one that started a Passport Bro type group on social media, but I see what you're doing on YouTube and others. You know what I mean? I don't want to make. I want to make sure I don't step on anybody's toes. Let me know. Let me know some background. So I respected that. He came and communicated as a man, and he learned something. He didn't make any pride or anything of that nature. So, um, it's all about communication, and then everybody could put together the pieces and say, okay, this person, this show background, this, that, and the other. But some people got the attitude like, I don't really care about this, that, or the other, you know. But in any event, before I lose any signal, man, I just want to say, man, appreciate y'all, man. If y'all haven't checked out the stream last night, make sure y'all check it out and let me know what y'all think in the comments, man. Peace out.